We got 25 minutes. We got to go. Let's do it.
Happy Wednesday, everybody.
Up dirty.
Wednesday.
Y'all notice that Janelle doesn't do the camel anymore, right? Who else?
I don't do that.
Drop that in the chat. Drop that in the comments. Janelle, I think, may have given up on her camel, guys. She's still on the bouncy ball, but I think she may have, in fact, given up on the camel. That tells you guys that if it's your first time watching, jump into that CashApp, send that money. Let's get that camel, man. Let's make Janelle's dream a reality. No. Happy Wednesday, you guys. Welcome to Say That.
So for those of you who are new to our channel, we are unapologetic about talking about the ugly come up for entrepreneurs and small business owners. And we have 25 minutes to answer the topic of the day. Sometimes it's myself and Winston, and other times it's myself, Winston, and a guest. And we'll have 25 minutes to answer that. And whatever we can get in that 25 minutes, we can. And then it runs out of time. Oh, no. And when our guests are around, we just go over to overtime, and overtime is available for all of our Patreon members, all of our Patreon community members. You can catch the overtime there. If you are not currently one of our community members on Patreon, that is also in the description box. So please feel free to jump on there so that way you don't miss anything, especially today that our guests say. I'm really excited.
All right, so let's jump right into it. What is today's question, guys? Today's question is, bing.
Is failure just the beginning for your business?
I love that.
We'll fix that. So that is the question, but I think it's a great question because as entrepreneurs, we're constantly worried about failure and what that could mean, but could it mean that it's just the beginning? So I'm really excited because it is not just Winston and I who are going to be answering this question today. Today, we have an amazing guest with us. He is so many things. A multi-hyphenated entrepreneur. He's a philanthropist. He has his own nonprofit organization. He is a founder. He's a CEO. But more than that, he's someone, I don't think I've met a person who has a bigger heart than him. Honest to God. One of the best things that I love about him is his huge heart. He has a huge smile, and he isn't afraid to lend a listening ear or to help anyone at any moment that he can. And it's one of the things I find most endearing about him. And I'm super excited that he was able to carve out some time for us. I'm really excited to bring to the stage Jonny Imerman.
Our next guest.
Oh, I love that.
Hey.
Janelle and Winston, listen,
What's
you guys
going
are
on?
the good energy. I'm inspired.
I want to say before we start, I completely agree. In looking at Johnny's social media platform, this man's smile will absolutely. I'm like it's in every picture. Every single time they took a picture, this guy has the same beautiful smile. So I gotta say, I love that about him as well.
You guys are very generous. One day I want to be as tough and strong as Winston. I'll tell you that, man. I got to go to the gym tonight, and every night for about 5 years, and I might be half as strong as Winston, but I'm going to try.
I love that. All right.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Jonny, as you know, you're getting tons of love on this side, but for those who don't know about you, I would love for them, the audience, to hear a little bit about your story, about how you got into entrepreneurship.
Well, Janelle, always great to see you. Winston, awesome to be with you. And thanks for having me. You know, failure, when we talk about failure, it's riddled through our I mean, it's like kind of all over, interwoven into everything that we've done. It's just part of getting, building stuff is getting knocked down and taking, left hooks and right hooks to the jaw. And that's just kind of the way it goes. And you just got to keep getting back up. But the quick backstory probably started with the biggest trauma of my entire life. I was 26, a couple of years out of college, going to the gym, playing sports, feeling totally fine, mid-20s. And all of a sudden I get diagnosed with advanced testicular cancer. Immediately went into surgery, went into chemo. Better part of about 2 years in my 20s, from 26 to 28, was either at my mom's house where I, can't really drive a car. So I moved back in with my mom, single 26-year-old kid, and she's driving me to chemos every day, about 8 hours a day. And so that teaches you a lot. You go through that at a young age. You appreciate life. You should appreciate life a lot more if you're able to beat it, which I was lucky enough to do. And, the more important part is at the very end of treatment, a group of young survivors and I met randomly at the hospital, and we all were like, we got to do something to give back. And then we realized, we're like, well, why didn't we know each other in the beginning of cancer treatments? That's when we were all isolated and scared and alone and not knowing what day one of chemo is like. And so we created a nonprofit that's called Imerman Angels. It's 100% free. We help people in over 115 countries. We have 13,000 plus cancer survivors on the team. And basically what it is, we find people fighting any form of cancer anywhere in the world, whatever it is, and then we introduce you one-on-one to somebody the same age who already beat your cancer to say, been there, done that, beat it. This is what's going to happen to you. This is what you should expect to be able to work out on chemo, what you can't do, eat these foods, don't eat those foods. All the things that happen during cancer, somebody's been through it. They should be a mentor. They should be sharing. They should be giving back. So we have been blessed as a team to grow this team, and over 13,000 of us who are all on call to give back one-on-one, blessed to help thousands of people every year. And then what we learned about that, that's the Imerman Angels site right there. Anyone who knows anyone with cancer or a survivor who wants to give back, just send them to our website. They can sign up online. Our team will call them. We'll hear what they're going through. Everything's free. It's always free. And then we'll hook them up. We'll introduce them to someone we already know and have vetted who's a survivor of the same thing. And we're always looking for more survivors, people who've already been through it, who have a story and want to give back and find purpose and meaning and experience. And they can sign up on our site and we'll call them, do a little training, and then you become a mentor. And 13,000 can be 13 million survivors one day. Every survivor has a story, and it can be, given to help the next person.
Well, that's amazing. We had Rachel Pauling, who I know you know from Statement Junkie, come in and talk about what it's like to essentially run a nonprofit business. Because even though it's a nonprofit, there's still a business side to it, and I think it's one of the most amazing things, right? Because the difference is, though, of course, is that usually your nonprofit has a heart. There's a huge purpose behind what your organization does, and it is so clear the heart behind Imerman's Angels and what its purpose is and what it's setting out to do to help so many people around the world. And you're already doing that, and that's truly amazing. So I guess the story is then like, and that is not the only, like he's got another business as well. And so I guess that leads me to ask, like, what was it like building Imerman's Angels? Like, to your point, you said you got knocked down, you got, punched in the jaw. Like, talk to us about some of the failures. Let's answer this question. Is failure just the beginning for your business?
Well, Janelle, likewise. I love what you do to help students in the genetics world and beyond. You're helping people every day. I think we all, if you want to find happiness, you got to find some purpose and doing something for people that's outside of yourselves. And so that attitude of helping people and empowering people with cancer sort of gave us the courage and motivation and maybe the stamina to fight through all those knockdown punches. And we still get knocked down daily. It's just part of the territory. Like, you make bad decisions, but you get knocked down, you fight through it. So when I think back about the build, we started in like 05-ish, became an official 501c3. Today, we're grateful. We have 13 full-time people. Our budget's just shy of about $2 million a year. We're able to run this thing like an engine and help people and make a difference. But let me tell you, it has not been an easy or even pretty at times build. I mean, that's just the nature of it, So when I think about some of the biggest failures, 99+% of them are on me, by the way, on our team. They're my bad calls, but that's, you learn. And so in the beginning, we started using technology that just wasn't helping us with the matching. We just didn't think it through. So we're like, let's just use a regular, Apple contact on a laptop. and here's Joe Smith, and they beat colon cancer stage 3, and they live in Washington, D.C. And we'll just keyword search to match people. And then we learned when we started getting thousands that this just was not a really easy way to search the data. And so with technology, that's definitely been something that we've failed at many times. I've made some really bad calls about what tech we should use. I'm not a techie. And, we should have had more people that we knew and trusted who were in the tech world to help us get the right tech faster and better. But we used maybe 3 different systems. None of them were really good. We kept migrating the data to a new system. We finally, 4.0 was Salesforce, and is Salesforce. We use it today. And it's a great system that really is customized when we match people to be able to not only search for them to find matches, but to keep their profile as current and up to date as possible. Because really we need good data to make good matches. So technology is something we failed at many times. I would also say with the board, our initial board, we had a couple really great board members, but we were in our 20s, we were younger, we didn't really know what a good board member really should be. And we picked people that weren't always the right people, or they didn't work well or play well in the sandbox, or they just kind of, want to do everything their way. And so we had to ask some people to leave the board again. So that I learned that as well. And now we've got a lot more board members that do a great job. When I think about more failures, I don't know if this is a failure, kind of is, but we've learned during COVID that now we don't need this office. We have a 4,500 square foot office, a full floor in Chicago, and we got an unbelievably low rate because we knew the landlord of the building in a high rise in downtown Chicago. And that's great. But the reality is we've learned with COVID, we probably don't need to be paying that much money. We can save that money and invest it more into the mission. And now people are working really more remotely. So our lease ends in May. We're excited to shed the property, move past that, save some money. But, I think that startup, if you're constantly tweaking, you're constantly seeing where you went wrong. But if you love the mission enough and you care enough, you don't give up and you keep getting back up every time you get your butt kicked. And it happens to me almost every day.
Okay. Well, I have 2 questions in mind, but Winston, were you ready?
Well, yeah. So the one thing thank you for sharing all of that, because I love the idea of maybe even turning this around and not necessarily looking at a lot of these things as failures, but just things that you need. Like you had to, fail, if we want to use those words. You had to fail at the board member thing to understand what you needed to change in order to tweak it. And I love what you just ended with, which is saying it's like, there'll always probably be tweaks. Like there'll be a 5.0 of what this is. And when you guys get on more people, I'm sure you'll need the systems to grow. So you'll probably, I don't know if Salesforce, but because I'm familiar with them to some degree, but maybe other iterations of that. And it's just having that understanding that as your business grows, you need to grow as well, right? Like as the business scales, you need to scale yourself. So I wanted to ask, or if you could shed a little light in how have you worked on yourself? I mean, just your story alone. I'm sure there's so many people who survive cancer, thankfully, but probably don't go on to do what it is that you and the people you met up with decide to do. So what would you say for yourself has been some of the, whether it's motivation or inspiration, that helped you turn something that I think most people would say is, it just be a blessing just to survive. But you guys have taken it to a completely other level and turned this into, a massive organization that's helping so many other people.
Well, thank you both for your kind words. What helped us build this thing was when we met each other. And I think teams build great things. And any single person that tells you that they built something personally that's awesome, don't believe them. They're full of it, right? Like you just
please go watch last week's episode.
Please go watch last week's episode.
You could not have said that any better.
It's like the best
team. I know.
Yes.
It's a team, and the more diverse and the more inclusive your team is, I personally believe the faster, the better chance you have to just see things from different angles, and you have a more inclusive group that's going to just build better things, bigger things, more inclusive things. And so I'm all about the diversity of the team, the mix of the team, but teams make it happen, not individuals. And I think that was a defining moment for us in our journey when we randomly met at the hospital. We were all in our 20s, and we immediately became friends because we were all sort of traumatized from this thing called cancer. And we were all like, holy shit, we're still alive. This is amazing. Like, but what are we going to do about it? And then we started the idea climbing again, back to teams. We started talking about like, what can we do? Should we do toy drives for kids with cancer? Should we do free rides to chemo for people who can't afford it? Mm-hmm. Should we try to find underserved people in uneducated areas? I mean, there's so many things we could do, but the one thing we felt wasn't being done, and the one thing we felt we had the most sort of potential to make a difference, was our stories. We realized that you had to live through stage 3 testicular cancer to understand what that journey is like, and all the colors and all the miles that are involved in that journey, in order to give that story back to someone else. And the guy next to me or the girl next to me probably doesn't know that same story, right? So we're like, every one of us has a unique story and a knowledge of what PICC lines are, catheters, ports, bleomycin, etoposide, cisplatin, like you x-rays, CAT scans, PET scans. Like, it's a whole language and a jargon. But we're like, in the beginning, none of us knew any of these terms. At the end of it, we know all these terms. And why can't we share what we know to make it easier? So it became very clear again as a team. And I bold and I highlight and I underscore the team, because the team together is what makes us strong, right? We don't know, with this network of over 13,000, who's the next person that's going to be called up to step in the game and to help somebody. Because there might be a girl in Miami in an hour from now that just got diagnosed with stage 2 cervical cancer. And then Amy, who lives in San Diego, who's her age, who beat stage 2 cervical cancer 3 years prior, she's the right person. And, and it could be somebody with testicular cancer in Michigan. And then maybe I'm the right person to step up and step in. So again, we're the epitome of teamwork because of the community and because the diversity and the inclusivity. We're mixed of all different colors, races, backgrounds, sexual orientations. Some have kids, some don't. Some are married, some are not. I mean, all ages. It's the mix of everybody in this community with all of our cancer stories that makes us work. No one person, no one part makes this powerful. It's all of us together in the community, because we don't know who's the next person to step up and step in and help.
That's amazing.
Well, that is really.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
I was gonna say, I was like, that just like feels good. It feels good for me because I feel like I'm in my place right now where I am in my mind. I'm like, I am okay with no longer doing anything by myself anymore. I've been trying too much to do things by myself, and so there's a lot of encouragement in what you just shared. It's kind of like confirmation that like, team is definitely the way to do anything anything worthwhile.
Absolutely.
Right? You want to go far, you do it with a team. Well, okay. So then 2 other questions that came up for me, and they may kind of like blend in together in a way and such, because you were saying like you get knocked down every day. There's always something every day. And I'm like, what does that literally look like? Like, what is really happening every day? Like, could you share with us some of the like a typical day-to-day challenge? But it may also tie into my second question, which is, I know personally that this Imerman Angels is not the only organization in which you're involved in. There's also ClozTalk, and you have that in the title by your name. And so that is more of a for-profit business, even though it's to help nonprofit businesses. So what have been the ways that you have been knocked down towards that business, which is different, still has a purpose, but like is a little bit different in its focus? Or maybe in how it's built, I should say. This business is built a little bit differently than Imerman Angels. So what are some of the failures that you faced working with ClozTalk? And in addition to that, maybe some of the daily challenges that you go through with either ClozTalk or Imerman Angels, either one.
Great question, Janelle. I mean, when you're an entrepreneur, and I know those who are doing it or have done it will relate to this, but every possible thing that you can imagine can go wrong goes wrong at some point. And sometimes it all happens at the same time. Even the small little things like today, you know what we're dealing with today with ClozTalk. There's some platform that Shopify sits on that my brother's like a lawyer too. He didn't even know about this. I didn't know about this. There's some legality with some certificate that Shopify's on, and something that they're like, wait, we initially when we launched the site, we didn't check this box or that box. We've been running around trying to figure out what we need to do to keep the store on. And they're like, yeah, until you check this box, Shopify or whoever the platform is has to shut it down. We don't even really understand what it's work. We're talking to our tech guys. So they literally want to shut our site down. So we're like
Oh my
fighting to be like, yeah, we're like, we never had this happen before. But there's a whole new problem that's never happened in 4.5 years. And now we're dealing with that today. And I think we'll be fine and we'll figure it out. I think the guy said that we were supposed to do something with his site or whatever. I don't know. We're going to figure that out. But there's all sorts of little things that can go wrong. You know, it's just part of it, whether it's something like that or your email breaks or you're in your co-working space, which I am right now, and the Wi-Fi goes out. I mean, you name it. There's always just challenges, and you learn to embrace the chaos, and you learn to embrace that this is how it is. And sometimes you just try to find a way to laugh through it when a couple of these hit at the same time. Not that that's easy, but you find a way. And so I do think that every time you have a startup and then another startup, and the more longer you do it, it gets a little easier. You're just not as surprised when things don't work well, and you realize that's just part of the process, right? This is just a piece of it. Yeah, and you roll with it and you figure it out. You work late nights sometimes, and then sometimes in the morning when you're like, hey, things are going really well right now, then you take an hour off or a couple hours off just for mental health or whatever you can, right? It's a constant just riding with the waves and learning how to sort of take your hands off the wheel, I think sometimes, instead of controlling everything. But yes, we created ClozTalk. It's a B Corp. And for those of you who don't know what B Corps are, it's kind of a newer certification, but it is a business, just like Janelle said, but it's the highest level certification that your business is a force for social good, that you're truly trying to solve a social problem. And there's only 1,500 in the whole United States, and there's about 3,500 outside the US, only about 5,000 in the world. It took us an entire year to get certified. They look at our books, they look at our numbers, they look at, you know, what brands we use, where the materials are sourced, are our suppliers diverse? You know, they look at everything, right? With the company, do we treat our people well? Do we have support nonprofits in the community? And it's basically a certification that every step of the business is looking at the environment, looking at people and inclusivity, solving a social problem. And the end question is, if this company grows, will the world become better, right? That's the main goal.
Wow.
And what the mission is for ClozTalk is we built a website where anyone can come to our site. We creatively drive people to ClozTalk's site where they can learn about hundreds and hundreds of awesome nonprofits, just like Statement Junkie, which Janelle knows very well. And the goal is you can search by animal nonprofits, employment nonprofits, helping the environment, food and nutrition. You can search by category if you want to. You can come to our site to say, all these causes are vetted. What am I most interested in? And then you can find causes like Feeding America or the Friendship Circle or Muscular Dystrophy Association. You can read about their mission, but if you get inspired by them on our site, the difference is right there, you can shop and you can buy their t-shirts, their hats, their hoodies, their yoga pants, their polos, their tank tops. We make the highest quality, all white on black or white on gray, and really high quality apparel. That's logo apparel that people actually like to wear and rock it, talk about it, spread the word. So really, ClozTalk mission is about branding. Like you can pick any one of these nonprofits you see here, and you can learn about their mission. And the logo, it sounds very simple. When you put it in white on black on a very high quality t-shirt or hat, it just looks cooler. And if it looks cooler and you care about it, and you're wearing it at the gym, or you're wearing it at a Cubs game, or walking your dog, people are going to see it. They might even ask you about it. It's an opportunity to spread the word, to share the love, to talk about your favorite cause. And that's all movement where people are actually wearing the logos of causes and feeling like they're volunteering, just doing their day-to-day activities, right? Rock a logo, spread the word, people will learn. How can we make sure more people know about all these great missions? That's what ClozTalk does. And it's pro bono for the nonprofits. They don't have to sell anything. They don't have to buy anything. They don't have to promote anything. They don't have to design anything. We create it all. We drive the traffic. We try to get people to spread the word for these causes. Everyone's going to find something they like here. Find it, rock it, talk about it, be a part of the good in the world.
That's amazing. Wow. Is that something that because I've never seen, and Janelle knows me, I'm like blah when it comes to nonprofits, but is that something that's never or hardly done? Because I don't know of one nonprofit that promotes so many other nonprofits.
Thank you, Winston, for the question. We don't know anyone in the world with the same model.
Wow, yeah.
We don't know anyone doing it. So that's how we got the idea, because this worked for Imerman Angels in Chicago, where it's based, our nonprofit. We got our friends to rock our logo if we made the quality good and it was comfy and soft. And we learned they just wanted like white on black. They wanted like just the logo, not the taglines or the missions. Simple, clean, less is more. And if you did the branding right and people wore it, the way it's good. Uh-oh, there we go.
That's the clock. That's the buzzer, guys.
Well, okay. So before we wrap up here, I do have a question that will lead us into overtime. I'm interested in knowing, what is one of the failures that you've had as you've grown ClozTalk, as you've grown Imerman Angels, as you've grown any company that maybe doesn't even exist anymore? Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs have like several companies. What has been one of the most profound lessons that you have learned from one of the failures that you've gone through? So think about that. That's what you're going to answer in overtime.
That sounds great. I'm gonna think about it.
This is definitely being really good. So, guys, before we get out of here, please show some love to Jonny in the chat below. I just want to throw up these sites again.
Fire emojis. Put a V for value,
definitely.
if you got a lot of value out of what he's saying. If you're going to ClozTalk right now to go get some,
let us know. No, seriously, because I saw some. I actually, again, if you look at his profile, I saw a lot of the shirts, and it was interesting because I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, I love that color. I love the fact, and I saw a lot of different names on it. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. So to hear how that all came about, that is incredibly interesting. Janelle and I are looking for people to design or say that, and I think we may. No, seriously, I think it'll look hot in black and white as well. So that's definitely something. So guys, make sure you go to this website. Let me throw up the Imerman Angels one as well, if you guys want to go there.
Absolutely. If you or someone you know is a survivor of cancer, or if you know someone who's just been recently diagnosed, like, this is definitely a website that you want to go to. I have to say, Jonny, I recently did just that for a friend. I sent them there, not as a volunteer, but as someone they knew who had recently been diagnosed. And so, like, it's just to even know that there's a resource that you can send people to get, like, find someone else to, like, share their story with. It just felt good that I could even make that connection. So, like, thank you for existing.
You're amazing, Janelle, and you're helping people every day. Both you guys are, whether it's training or you in the hospital working with students. I mean, that is making a difference every day. And being a link and sending people to us will help them. But again, it's another example of teamwork. Like, absolutely. You're a great human. You're sending them our way. You get them to us. We take it from there. Together, we help a life.
Okay, guys, so if you want to hear the rest of what Jonny's about to go into and share, do not miss it. You can click right in that link. If you haven't signed up, sign up now. We will be live on Patreon, so you can definitely check them out there. And for everyone else, thank you guys so much for being here with us. Let's show some more love to Jonny. And as always, remember,
You deserve,
You deserve
the good
the good
life.
life.
Say
Say
that.
that. We'll see you guys in a couple minutes.
You guys are awesome.